Montana. Happy Tuesday evening. Hope you all have enjoyed the nice weather we saw today. It was a very pleasant spring day out there. We're likely to see another one for tomorrow. So we'll get started with this update here in just a second. Right at the moment, we're not going to see a whole lot on the cameras, but I'm going to spin these back around, show you what those current conditions are like across western Montana, and then we'll get started with this update here in full here in about say 30 seconds to more likely a minute. But again, hope you all are having a great evening and enjoying the very nice weather that we are seeing right now. But overall, conditions are quiet out there right now, and honestly, this should continue to be the case for today, or the rest of tonight, I should say, and much of the day tomorrow, though we will start to see some changes into late tomorrow evening and then again into Thursday, and really that's really going to be the start of a more active period of weather. So getting this started just a little bit late, so I say let's get rolling with this. As you're tuning in, certainly let us know where you're tuning in from this evening, and if you're enjoying the lovely weather we've been seeing. And feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section. And then if you have any questions as we go throughout this update, certainly feel free to ask those as well. So with that, let's get rolling with this. Today's temperatures, we saw those in the 60s and low 70s area-wide. We were at 68 in Bozeman, 62 in Butte, 64 in Dillon. But the more interesting temperatures are these up towards Kalispell and Missoula. 70 degrees in Missoula. That ties the daily record high of 70. That was at least first set in 1960. Kalispell, we broke the daily record. The old record was 61 degrees. We reached 62 this afternoon. So that record for Kalispell was set back in 1999, and we're at least looking at the potential of another day of record-breaking warmth for Wednesday. So this ridge of high pressure is really centered over us, and it's keeping things very nice out there. Very spring-like and more late, mid to late spring type of weather that we're seeing. Now, conditions are quiet thanks to that ridge of high pressure. Now that the sun has set, I'll back this up just a hair. We've seen those temperatures fall back into the 40s and 50s, but still very mild for this time of the evening. 54, our warm spot in Missoula. As we go throughout the night tonight, most areas are going to see those temperatures falling into the 30s and low 40s. So many areas will stay above freezing tonight. That's going to continue to add to our snowmelt at our mid and upper levels. But a little bit of note from this past weekend's snow that we dealt with up in the mountains, we've actually seen improvement to our snowpack. Almost every basin in our region is near normal for this time of the year. There's a few up across, say, north central Montana that are a little bit below average. But for the most part, we are doing very well when it comes to our snow water equivalent in our snowpack. We will see the melting overnight tonight and through the day on Wednesday and even into Thursday as well. But more snow for our mountains is in the forecast for the latter parts of the week into the weekend and likely even early next week. So as we get sort of towards the end of the typical snowpack building season, we're going to continue to see some at least decent improvements in our snowpack. So that's always great news as we head towards the end, or at least the median peak of our snow water equivalent, which usually occurs about mid-April. Now again, we're going to be looking at temperatures tomorrow warming up even more so than what we saw today in a few areas. 65 in Kalispell as well as in Bozeman, likely a few degrees shy of those records of 68 and 70. But Missoula at 72, if we reach that temperature, will tie the record once again from 1946. And then Butte, 69 is still that forecast, which would handily break the old 1997 record of 64 degrees. And then many other areas, some of our smaller communities, will likely be approaching daily records as well. And this is all being driven by this ridge of high pressure that you see centered over not only western Montana, but really the Mountain West as a whole. So that's going to stay in place for about another 24 to, I'd still say 24 hours, maybe 36 hours for our region. But you see this low pressure system that's intensifying and some of these clouds out in front of it. That is our next storm system. And as it moves to the north and east across the Pacific Northwest into our region. That's going to spark off some thunderstorms for tomorrow afternoon. But that's really going to be the start of this active period of weather. We're seeing that 0% chance of showers tomorrow. Big reason for that, it likely does not start until after midnight on Thursday. We're probably talking, say, 2 to 3 a.m. in the morning. And you'll see that here on Future Tracker here in a minute. But then we'll continue to see that chance for showers Friday and Saturday, primarily looking at valley rain, but snow levels will start to drop into Saturday, and there is the potential we could even see a little bit of valley snow for, say, the overnight period and morning into Saturday, though really if we're going to be seeing any kind of travel impacts, that will be overnight over our passes. Right now, valley impacts are not expected to be very high from any snowfall that does occur. And for the most part, again, it should stay as rain. But we'll look at that in more detail here in a few minutes. I am going to swap a graphic here. We'll get in the Future Tracker momentarily, but I wanted to give you a sense of the potential for severe weather into Wednesday. Not for western Montana, but close enough. For our region, we're talking that general thunderstorm threat here in this light green shade. Gusty winds, say 30 to maybe as high as 45 miles per hour. Some small hail and lightning with some thunderstorms are expected, but you look back into this darker green shade into Oregon, Washington, and into Idaho, this is a marginal threat for some isolated severe thunderstorms, wind gusts 58 miles per hour or stronger, and then hail 1 inch in diameter or larger. So we're talking quarters or larger. And I actually want to zoom this out. I'm going to go into this graphic. You're going to see something here that's just a little bit different. And I wanted to show you back here. And this is more if you have friends or family back into the I-5 corridor. So you see Seattle down through Portland, down into places around Eugene. Let me see if I can get a few more communities. Salem, Eugene, Portland, Chehalis, Olympia, Seattle. You don't see slight risks for severe weather out in that I-5 corridor very often. And it's not just for wind. There is actually a significant threat for large hail, potentially exceeding 2 inches in diameter as specified by the Storm Prediction Center. So a very rare type of situation is set up for that I-5 corridor, and there even is a very, very low chance of a spin-up tornado or two. So kind of some interesting weather that's going to be eventually encroaching our area, but that's the same system that's leading to the marginal risk for places like eastern Washington and eastern Oregon that's going to get just close enough to our region that it's, one of those we just kind of have to keep a closer eye on than we might do so otherwise. Additionally, for the fact that it's March, we're not talking severe weather like we were dealing with last year, July, August, September. No, this is March. We're still in winter season. So again, an interesting ones down there. Just saw the comment there. Glad we don't get tornadoes in New Mexico. Really big dust devils, but no real tornadoes. I will say this. One of my first tornadoes ever was actually, that I saw personally, was actually in New Mexico. Right along the Texas state line. I'll give you that. But no, I have definitely seen some big time dust devils traveling through New Mexico. So thank you for that comment. But for the most part, yeah, New Mexico, you don't see quite as much in the way of tornadic severe weather until you get like right there closer to the Texas state line. Places like Clovis, Portales, even places closer to like Las Vegas and areas east from there. So I'll say that's one area of the country I actually have a lot of experience spending time out there. But yeah, fun stuff there. But a little bit of a tangent there. But yeah, overall, we're looking at continued active weather. So let me spin this back around, and we will take a look at what that storm system is going to do for western Montana. Tomorrow, we're looking at mostly clear skies, maybe some clouds starting to filter in by the afternoon. Most of it's going to be higher level type of clouds. Here comes that storm system. You're seeing some of these yellows and oranges and even that red core of a thunderstorm that Future Tracker's picking up there north of Spokane. This is really what we're going to be left with, is some spotty showers, potentially some gusty winds. I think that's going to be the biggest concern into Thursday morning, I should say. This is around 3 a.m., so a few showers up in towards Kalispell, Libby, the US 93 corridor from Missoula down into the Bitterroot Valley. But overall, those showers clear out pretty quick. Things quiet for the most part on Thursday morning, but then we'll see that storm system approaching from the west, getting a little bit closer, and we start to see some thunderstorms develop by the early afternoon. This is about 3 p.m., seeing one of those right close to Flathead Lake, and that'll be important for another reason as I start pulling more of these storms up. But you notice you've got a few of these thunderstorms, yellow, orange, and red cores. With those, right now we're not expecting severe weather. We don't even have an official designation for an isolated threat for severe weather, but some stronger storms, maybe 30 to 50 mile per hour winds, will be possible. Could even see some small hail. Lightning, I think, will be the biggest concern in addition to the winds. But for our area lakes, so Flathead Lake, if you got any plans that take you to the lake, just be aware of some choppy conditions on the water, especially in and around some of these thunderstorms that do develop. So it may not be a great day for small craft. I do know that the National Weather Service in Missoula is mulling the potential of a lake wind advisory for Flathead Lake as we get into Thursday afternoon. Something we'll have to just kind of keep an eye on, watch, but just be prepared. We could be talking gusts 30 to 45 miles per hour with some of those thunderstorms on Thursday afternoon. Then we'll continue to see the active weather through the evening. There's going to be a cold front associated with it. That's one driver for the active weather. We're going to continue to see that off and on through the night. And then Friday, we're going to see the shower activity start to briefly taper off Friday morning, but by the afternoon, here comes the next wave. And at this point, I think we're going to primarily be looking at rain showers, not so much thunderstorms, but we could be looking at those snow levels starting to fall. And this is going to go to another view. Here's Friday afternoon. We're seeing those showers. A little bit more snowfall tries to develop in southwest Montana. I think the reason for that is that low pressure system we were watching off the Pacific coast is going to be approaching from the kind of the south and west. At that point, you notice a little bit of that northward spin in the atmosphere. And by Saturday morning, this is, I think, our window where we see the majority of our moisture, but also the chance for some pass level snowfall and higher. So if you have any travel plans that take you, especially into southwest Montana by this particular weather model, that those snow levels may be a little bit lower into Saturday morning, closer to that low pressure system. This even continues into Saturday afternoon, though. Temperatures 43 and 44 Butte and Bozeman. We're probably still looking at that mix of rain and snow before that system begins to clear out into Sunday. But then as quickly as that one moves out, here we go, Monday, Tuesday, likely much the same. So in long story short, that active weather, once it starts, that is going to be hanging around. Now, I did just see one more comment. I'm driving from the Mesilla Valley to Merkel. Oh, that's another place I've spent a fair amount of time in, is Merkel, Texas. I traveled through there a bunch. Now, for Thursday, again, that's well out of the area, but let me take a look at one thing really quick, and I might be able to give you a little heads up for, if I can get this pulled up, for what you could expect out there. And this is me just doing some forecast analysis right on the fly. I'll do this really quick because I've only got about, say 20 minutes to get ready for the 10 o'clock show, but I can do that here really quick, more just out of the fun of it, because it gives me a chance to look back closer to home back in Texas. So let's see what we're looking at down there. I'm just going to be looking off screen to the other camera, or I say the other camera, to the other computer. Towards the Merkel area Thursday, I will say this, just looking at it, be prepared for some showers, especially as you get into eastern New Mexico, potentially the South Plains, so directions out towards, say, Lubbock or Midland, depending on which direction that you're going. And then by the time you get out to Merkel, you're looking at an increased likelihood of maybe showers and a few thunderstorms. So hopefully you have safe travels on Thursday with that. But again, just be aware for a little bit of active weather, much like we're going to be dealing with here in western Montana as we get into the latter parts of this week. So the main takeaways, as I start to wrap this up, again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask those in the chat section. For tomorrow, another round of potentially record highs. Missoula could tie the record if we meet that forecast high. And then we have Butte, who likely will break the record, potentially by a decent margin as well. But I think there's multiple communities across western Montana that could see record highs tomorrow afternoon. The increasing moisture, southwesterly winds, that low pressure system moving on into the Pacific Northwest, that's all going to be a driver for thunderstorms and potentially a few stronger ones. Could be talking gusts in those anywhere from 30 to perhaps as high as 60 miles per hour. I think we're more in that 30 to 50 mile per hour range. This will be late Wednesday evening into Thursday morning, but then once again Thursday afternoon and evening as our cold front moves through. Temperatures will be falling from the 60s on Thursday down into the 50s and eventually the 40s for a few areas as we get into the weekend. And then early next week, the active weather continues. We're talking in general valley rain and mountain snow. Pass level could be talking about some lighter or at least slushy accumulations during the morning hours and overnight period. That could lead to some travel impacts, something we'll certainly keep an eye on. But it's good news for our mountains. We're going to continue to see some snow pack building type snows, even though we're going to see melting in our mid and upper level elevations for tonight and tomorrow, and likely again on Thursday. So again, thank you all for tuning in this evening. I hope you have a great rest of the evening and that you enjoy the spring weather while we've got it. Go out and enjoy it tomorrow, because by the time we get to Thursday, it'll still be here kind of. I guess I should say, and so by the time we get to Friday, we're really going to start to see those changes back to more of that typical early spring type of setup. Temperatures closer to average, 40s and 50s will be common with that active weather. One other note, and this is something that I'm keeping a very close eye on. The northern lights may make an appearance outside tonight. The forecast is for a KP of like 5.67, so a 6 minus on the KP values. We're kind of in a lull right now, but there is the potential. If you look off to the north with these partly cloudy skies, you could get a good view of the aurora. Best way to do it, to get to see it, long exposure photography and away from the city lights. That'll give you your best chance. If you get any photos of that, or however you're enjoying the warm weather, that or the aurora, feel free to share those with us at nbcmontana.com/chime in. And then, of course, tune into our live broadcast coming up here in about 25 minutes. And me and Laurel Staples will have your latest news and weather updates. And then, of course, tomorrow morning, NBC Montana Today, starting at 5 with Jason Hurst and Chief Meteorologist Brooke Foster. And then you'll likely see me again for another update tomorrow, especially if we start getting some of those storms rolling in tomorrow evening. Again, not expecting severe weather here, but something I'll certainly keep a very close eye on. But again, if you have friends or family back along the I-5 corridor, places like Eugene, Salem, Portland, Oregon, up towards, I'll add Centralia, Olympia, Tacoma, Seattle, up into Washington. Potential, at least a greater potential than you might expect for hail, wind, and maybe even a tornado or two up into that part of the Pacific Northwest with a very abnormally strong storm system, and the conditions are quite right. I was actually looking at some information about it, about the storm system, really going into the meteorology, the severe weather meteorology of it all, and it reminded me of some of the diagrams and such and forecasting that I did growing up in the the southern plains, stuff that I dealt with back in Texas and Oklahoma, places like that. So it was like, this is a little bit interesting and abnormal, but I'm off on a tangent there. Overall, for western Montana, we are quiet for tomorrow. Tomorrow evening, we start to see those showers and storms increasing in coverage. And then again, Thursday, best chance for precipitation before we get into more steady rain and snow for Saturday. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Have a great evening. I'll see you all in the next one. With NBC Montana, I'm meteorologist Mitchell Combs.